What's going on, everybody? B Scott here with you, and on today's show, we got your wide receiver sit starts heading into week 7. Obviously, there's lots of big buys, lots of big players that are on by at the wide receiver position, so I'm going to give you my must-start players, and obviously some players that you probably should be sitting heading into week 7. So keep it locked and loaded right here at the first 4 downs. Everybody, and welcome back. B Scott here with you, and we're going over the wide receiver sit starts heading into week number 7. Obviously, there's a lot of big wide receiver names that are on bye this week, so I'm going to be giving you some names that you should be looking to plug into your lineups heading into your matchup this week. So before we get to today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, all that good stuff, and then comment. If there's a receiver you got a question about, start sit, flex, whatever, any receivers you want to talk about, drop in the comment section, and I'll be glad to give you my opinion heading into this week. So let's start with some must-start receivers. Obviously, the 10 best receivers for me this week that you shouldn't even have questions about. Devonta Adams, an obvious start on a weekly basis no matter what. Playing the Washington football team, a great spot for him. Same thing with Tyreek Hill. You're obviously going to be plugging him in your lineups. Playing the Tennessee Titans give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. He should have a good day, barring health. Cooper Kupp, same thing, Detroit Lions. They're looking to really put it on Jared Goff, plain and simple, so I like Cooper Kupp. He's going to have a great day. Jamar Chase, now worked into a must-start wide receiver on any given week. He's a top 10 receiver in fantasy. Playing the Baltimore Ravens, tough matchup, but you're going to be firing him. He's been good. Deebo Samuel, playing the Indianapolis Colts. Hopefully Jimmy Garoppolo comes back. That's where Deebo's really shined the most, and I like it. It's a plus matchup. DK Metcalf, playing the New Orleans Saints. Yes, he's limited, albeit with, Geno Smith under center, but you're starting DK Metcalf based on volume alone, and it should be an okay day at the worst for DK. DJ Moore, same thing, playing the New York Giants. Good matchup here. And DJ Moore actually coming off back-to-back somewhat subpar games, still getting huge target share, so you're starting him on every single week, no matter what. DeAndre Hopkins, another guy, playing the Houston Texans, his old team. He should honestly, hopefully, find his first 100-yard game of the season. We got Terry McLaurin, barring health, at the Green Bay Packers. Just a must-start every single week. And then you're firing all of the Tampa Bay wide receivers on any given week, no matter the matchup. They're playing the Chicago Bears, who have really a middle-of-the-pack secondary, so I'm firing all those wide receivers as well. So let me get into some must-start receivers, guys that you might have some questions about. First, let's start with Brandin Cooks. Playing the Arizona Cardinals, it's a good matchup. 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers, tied for the 2nd most touchdowns to wide receivers at 9. Coming off a decent day, 13 targets, 9 receptions, 89 yards. Should see huge volume, just the game script alone. The Cardinals are favored by 17 points, so Brandin Cooks is a must-start for me this week. And in the 3 blowout games that they've lost, actually, Brandin Cooks has averaged 9 receptions in all 3 of those games. So I like Brandin Cooks in a plus matchup. He's going to be on the field a lot, so start Brandin Cooks. There's no way around it. Another guy like JAYLEN WADDLE. I told you to start him last week. I like him once again this week. Playing at home against the Atlanta Falcons, give up 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Waddle with Tua, 18 targets, 14 receptions, 131 yards, 3 touchdowns in the 2 full starts they have together. They have a connection. And Tua, they don't have a run game. They don't really have a defense. So they're leaning on Tua to throw the ball a lot. 47 dropbacks he had last week, over 300 yards passing. So I like JAYLEN WADDLE heading into this game. The Atlanta Falcons give up 7 touchdowns in 5 games and allowing 12.6 yards per reception on average to wide receivers. So JAYLEN WADDLE is a must-start for me this week. Another guy I like, Darnell Mooney, playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, yes, Tampa Bay secondary. It looks like it's improving, but not really. They did get Dean back on the secondary, but Sherman's out. And on top of that, the Bears, they're going to be in a lot of negative game script. There's no question about it. Tampa Bay still getting up to 11th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Mooney coming off his best day of the season, really his most targets at 8. 5 catches for 45 yards, his first touchdown. He's got 20 targets over his last 3 games. And Allen Robinson, dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury, a little banged up. And it looks like Mooney's just a better target that Justin Fields likes. And in this matchup, I could see Darnell Mooney catching the big play touchdown. Tampa Bay has been susceptible in that secondary. So I like Darnell Mooney as a possible flyer here heading into week 7. Another flyer option for me, MARQUEZ, CALLAWAY. On the road against Seattle Seahawks, giving up 12th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Coming off a season high, 8 targets. His target share is increasing. 4 catches for 85 yards, had the 2 touchdowns. Caught really the big play touchdown at the end of the half. But it's looking like Jameis Winston hopefully can get some rhythm going. The Seattle secondary, it doesn't scare me at all. And Marquez Callaway, if Deontay Harris especially happens to miss this game. Did leave the game with a hamstring before the bye, so pay attention to that as well. If he would happen to miss, I like Marquez Callaway even that much more. So obviously he's a boomer bust flyer, but this week with so many big key injuries, I would be taking a flyer with Marquez Callaway if you have to. And then I like Michael Pittman Jr. as a start this week on the road against the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers secondary hasn't been great, but it hasn't been horrible. Coming off a down game, Michael Pittman is 3 targets, just 2 catches for 35 yards. T.Y. Hilton, you really saw that connection, and obviously he just roasts the Texans, plain and simple. But now he's dealing with a little bit of a quad injury. We'll have to wait and see if he's available to play. If he's not, that's an even bigger boost for Michael Pittman here. He was averaging 9 targets per game between weeks 2 and 5 without T.Y. Hilton. So I like Michael Pittman going into this matchup. The San Francisco 49ers giving up a touchdown in 4 of 5 games this year, 2 wide receivers. And on top of that, the last 3 wide receiver ones that they faced. DeAndre Hopkins, 6 catches, 87 yards and a touchdown. DK Metcalf, 4 catches, 65 yards and a touchdown. And then Devonta Adams, the 12 catch, 132 yards and a touchdown. So they've given up a lot of fantasy points to that wide receiver one. That should be Pittman heading into this week. So get him in your lineups. Should have a decent day here in a decent matchup against the 49ers. So now, let's look at some wide receiver sits heading into week number 7. First off, the New England Patriots pass catchers altogether. The New York Jets giving up fewest receiving yards, fewest receptions, and the fewest receiving touchdowns to wide receivers. And Jacoby Myers. Yes, he's seen some volume in some games, but he just doesn't seem to be able to find the end zone. And I like the New England Patriots in this matchup, but I can't trust the pass catchers alone. I think the tight ends are going to get it done. I think they're going to be able to run the ball effectively with Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. And Jacoby Myers is the only one you can trust on any given week. And in this matchup, he's flex worthy at best. So I'm sitting all the New England Patriots pass catchers. I think they're going to be able to handle the New York Jets. No problem at home. A couple other guys I don't like for the Cincinnati Bengals, T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd. Both these guys I really don't like to be starting. Since T. Higgins' return, you've seen Tyler Boyd's numbers just fall off a cliff. Plain and simple, 8 targets, 5 catches, 31 total yards in the last 2 games for Tyler Boyd. I can't start him here against the Baltimore secondary that's very, very good. And then T. Higgins, same thing. Since Jamar Chase connection, we have not seen the production, the same T. Higgins, as we did last year, as we did the first week or 2 of the season. So I don't like both these guys in this matchup. Higgins, since his return, 13 targets, just 8 catches for 76 yards. But the Baltimore Ravens are a tough defense, especially against wide receivers. I think you're going to see a lot from C.J. Uzomah is going to be a decent one. I think both running backs out of the backfield, you see they're getting Chris Evans involved in the pass game, Joe Mixon in the pass game. That's where the Baltimore Ravens can really be beat. I want to say they've given up a lot of touchdowns to the pass-catching running backs. So I like those guys, but I don't really like T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd in this matchup this week. And then Devonta Smith, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. Really the Eagles pass catchers. None of them you can trust, but Devonta Smith, since week 1, he hasn't had a touchdown. Las Vegas Raiders giving up the 4th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. 10 yards per reception to wide receivers, which is bottom 5 in the league. They played very well against pass catchers. Just 3 touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. So I just can't trust Devonta Smith here. Jalen Hurts, his effectiveness throughout the game, it's very hit and miss. And yes, he could always break the pocket and make a big play downfield with Devonta Smith. So that's always a potential play. But I just haven't seen the consistency from Devonta Smith to play in a tough matchup. He had a great matchup last week. I had him as a star last week, and he let me down. He let a lot of people down, considering he had a plus top 5 matchup against his cornerbacks and really just dudded out, plain and simple. So I don't like Devonta Smith heading into this week against the Raiders secondary that is well above average. So anyway, that's been your wide receiver sit starts. Wide receivers you must be starting anyway. A few guys that I like this week and a few guys that I would stay away from. So obviously, if you like the video, subscribe, share, thumb, bell, all that good stuff. And then comment. If there's a receiver you want to hear more about or ask questions about, drop in the comment section and I'll be glad to get back to you. So for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott and I'm out.